It's important to know the significance of this exhibit in New York to Poland and Polish society at the time in 1939. Poland was literally reborn in 1918, under the auspices of General Piłsudski. This is Stephen de Ropp. This was the crucial person who was the commissioner of the pavilion, and he was the one that was responsible for all the things that would happen later when Poland would go into World War II. De Ropp was very important because in Poland he held a high status as the manager of the Poznań Trade Fair, which actually was a great event in Poland, which continues to this day in a different form. But de Ropp was a unique individual. He was multilingual. He was well versed in Russian literature. He traveled the world, and he was able to accomplish quite a few things in his life, especially making this pavilion come together as an exhibit of Poland. Now, why was this pavilion so important? The 1939 World's Fair, which is known to us as the World of Tomorrow Fair, actually it was building the world of tomorrow. It would be a forecast of things to come in the United States in the next few years. Unfortunately, the kicker was that World War II would erupt in the same day, in the same year. The Polish Pavilion did not only incorporate an Hall of Honor, it also had a commercial display, which I will talk about shortly, and also a restaurant which featured Polish dishes. And here is the actual menu from that restaurant, and it featured some very interesting Polish ham with tartar sauce, veal brains, and calf's brains rather, and braised duckling with cranberries, and all for the total sum of $1.25, your choice from the menu. So it was quite an interesting offering because Poland wanted to show its best foot forward during this exhibit. And this was the planned building as it appeared in the 500-plus page program that was published for this particular pavilion. It was published not only in Polish, but also in English, and I believe that the museum here has copies of it. It's fascinating reading because the pavilion featured quite a few interesting things that I will mention shortly. But please go on to the next step. Of course, this was a view of a contemporary postcard of the pavilion. This is another postcard view, and you can see the statue of King Jagiełło and the words Poland and the magnificent tower that was done with these, they say gold-plated, but gold-like shields that presented a view of a Poland that was based in history, but also looking forward to the future. So we have the medieval angle and the futuristic angle combined in one pavilion, which also received many prizes for its construction. So what were the goals of the exhibit? To show Poland as a country with a long history as a European state, striving for modernity, industrializing, and as a side issue, to establish contacts for trade. This is just a brief list of the things that were shown. In the Hall of Honor, we had various exhibits on Polish history, the fine arts, sculpture, folk art, metal castings, weaving, graphic arts, industrial products, commodities, pharmaceuticals, chemicals, etc. This was one of the panels that was shown. It shows the Amber Trail running from the Baltic into Greece and south. More panels from the catalog. You see here that Poland was striving to sell its commodities, sugar, meat, various metals, its metal manufacturing, some more of its seeds, paper, coal, all the things that Poland could produce and put on the world market were being shown. And also, as I mentioned, there were works of art. One of these was Polish Nike by Edward Wittig, almost as artfully done, beautiful models of Polish-made locomotives, which are here in the museum that you may see. Another photo from the catalog showing the streamlined locomotive that was in production in Poland at the time. Poland was really making efforts in the railroad industry, and this was an opportunity to show what it had to give to the world. Also art. On the left, we see a rendition of Kościuszko, a Polish hero. On the right, there was a statue by Dunikowski of Kazimierz Pulaski. There's a reason why I'm showing these, because later these will be scattered around the world and you will see them in a different setting. This particular beautiful stained glass window is right here in this hall. So this picture actually doesn't do it justice. And this is, just so that you notice, this is a panel from that same stained glass showing a tribute to the Polish army in the Bolshevik Polish War. 7 historical paintings. This is the crux of what we're talking about. These were 7 events important to Polish history, which were selected, I understand, with Joseph Beck, the Polish foreign minister, participating in making these particular selections. Bolesław the Brave meets Otto III in Gniezno. The baptism of Lithuania, that is, Lithuania accepting Christianity with King Jagiełło in this picture. It's an allegory. Granting of the Charter of Wiednia, which brought the idea of habeas corpus into Polish law. The Union of Lublin, the official joining of Poland and Lithuania together. The Warsaw Confederation, which conferred equal rights to believers of other than the Catholic faith in Poland. And the relief of Vienna with King Sobieski up front in essentially saving Christendom from the Turk. And the last one, perhaps most important, was the May 3rd Constitution, which was the second constitution in the world for a nation to adopt, and first in Europe. You will notice that these were painted by the Brotherhood of St. Luke. These were 11 paintings, and on top is the name Sibis, and the others together in 1939. Each painting was so signed with the names hidden away in a corner or bottom or somewhere, but all 11 painters signed these particular works, which was a tribute. And the work was divided among them. The one specialized in architecture, another specialized in costumes, faces, backgrounds, and so forth. And I must not forget also that there were 4 of the Szymański tapestries. This is the one of the angel as it was hung in the Lemoyne Library not so long ago. Unfortunately, the fair continued, but Poland was engulfed in World War II. And suddenly, there were no funds for Stefan de Ropp to use to run the pavilion. So what he did is he appealed to his American friends. He used income from the restaurant to finance the exhibit. He also mounted a special exhibit of photographs of destruction in Poland during the war. It just so happens that my father's aunt, who left Poland as the war was breaking out, attended this particular exhibit, and the Polish pavilion was the first one that she attended. And she said, "My heart broke because Poland was no more." So, moving on. Sibis, the first of the artists, is the person that I was personally acquainted with because of my work for Mr. Edward Pinkalski. And to tell the truth, I don't think these paintings would have had my involvement had I not been working for Mr. Pinkowski, because he was involved in so many interesting things and he stirred my interests. And by the time I was introduced to the subject of these 7 lost paintings and the 4 tapestries, I was already familiar with Bolesław Sybis's work, because what happened at the outbreak of the war, he had come originally to decorate the pavilion as an artist. Then he decided he would not go back to Poland during the war, and he started a very successful porcelain studio. This was one of his works, and they were exhibited in the finest magazines. These particular items were given to heads of state by American presidents who visited the other countries. So you can imagine the quality of these artists, who they were. I could go into a lot more of this, but I think Sybis's case is one that stands out, that the kind of quality and the kind of effort that was put into the pavilion to make it a success, to show Poland in the best light in America. So now, these particular items, these beautiful things from the pavilion, of which from the catalog we learned there were about 11,000 individual items in the catalog, which is an astounding amount. It's almost difficult to imagine that there were so many things, because there were not just the paintings, the statues and so forth, but there were small exhibits, coins, stamps, other items. There were models of ships, there were models of airplanes, there was an airplane engine, there were some interesting things, for example, a tire that was made from, believe it or not, latex produced from potatoes. And there was a light bulb that was without vacuum. It somehow produced light, perhaps in a similar way as the new modern LED lamps. But this was something that Poland had on exhibit. There was a radio receiver, as I mentioned, the airplane models, and other things, products of Polish industry. Some of these things you will find in this museum if you go and tour very carefully. This locomotive is one of the current production that I took a picture of here in the museum. This is the other locomotive. There's the streamlined one. Also, as you go around the museum, you will see similar artworks done in wrought iron. And of course, there was the famous statue of King Jagiełło that is now in Central Park. This was renovated just recently. This is the Pulaski you saw earlier. And it is in Wyandotte, Michigan. It was also renovated recently. This is a tapestry or a wall hanging that is currently at the Kosciuszko Foundation in New York. It's in one of their offices. These tables that were used to display facsimiles of important historical documents found their way into many places. Several found their way back to Poland. This particular one is in Philadelphia. There were also 3 bells produced for this, and they were works of art all to themselves. The largest one of them was the Struggles for Liberation bell, which is now at the Holy Name of Jesus Parish in Stamford, Connecticut. And I was very fortunate when I visited there to find it parked outside, all cleaned for me to photograph. There was a description written by the priest when this was purchased as the ROP was selling off various items from the exhibit to pay the expenses of the pavilion. So that particular parish bought the bell, and they are maintaining it there in beautiful state. You will see that there's bas relief on the bell, and it shows various scenes from Polish history. Also, the coats of arms of Polish cities and Polish heroes. So some people were saying that almost the entire history of Poland is on that bell. So if you read it carefully enough and you know the particular people involved, you can get a real lesson in how Polish history transpired through the years. This is, as I mentioned, there were 3 bells. This one is here at the museum. It's the pokolenie bell. And surprise, surprise, you saw this Polish Nikkei earlier from the catalog. It happens to be in Bad Nauheim in Germany currently. And this photo was sent to me from the archivist of the town. Now, going back to what happened to those paintings. The paintings, of course, were the last thing that the ROP had to dispose of. He auctioned off many of these items, as you saw. He tried to find places where they would represent Polish history and represent Poland in general to people, to tell the Polish story. But these 7 paintings and 4 tapestries he held on to for the longest time. Eventually, when he got his job with Le Moyne College as a lecturer, he arranged for them to take custody of them. And they were placed in the museum, in their library. This was the new library that was built in the 1980s. And this is where they resided. I had the privilege then, when I started getting involved in this particular project of recovery, I decided that I would have to kind of go in deep and try to find the various people who were involved with the paintings. One of them was Father Frank Haig. Father Haig is actually the brother of Alexander Haig, Secretary of State to Ronald Reagan. I don't know if any of you remember that particular history, but Father was president of Le Moyne College when that new library was put together and the paintings placed there. So I had a very interesting talk with him. At that point, I wasn't quite involved because the subject was brought to me by Jolanta Chojecka, a filmmaker from Poland. She was working with Izabela Galicka, who worked on several recovery projects, and these 2 ladies discussed the paintings in Le Moyne. I had worked with Jolanta on a film about Pulaski, and suddenly she brought up this particular subject. Unfortunately, at the time, I had no legal standing to represent Poland in doing any negotiating or even pressing forward with a plea for return. However, that was soon to change because before long, I wrote 2 articles for Nowy Dziennik, the Polish language newspaper in the United States. And perhaps because of that, I received a letter from the dear departed Mr. Miller of the Ministry of Culture. And in his letter, he stated that they had received no answer to Minister Gliński's plea for the return of the paintings. In that particular letter, Minister Gliński stated that he was offering $70,000 as restitution for the restoration work. And it was a beautifully written letter, of which I have a copy. And unfortunately, it yielded no response from the administration of the college. So in his letter to me, Mr. Miller appealed that I should use whatever influence I had to try to start some sort of a conversation with the college. So after receiving that letter and being informed well about the paintings, I started a writing campaign with Linda Lemura. Can I have the next? Oh, by the way, this is how the paintings appeared in the library when they were shown there. With Linda Lemura, who was president of the college. Now, there had been previous attempts at starting a dialogue with the college. However, there were 2 people involved. This was Marek Skulimowski, who was then assistant consul in New York, and Bogusław Winit, who had been the charge d'affaires at the Polish embassy. Later, he was the Polish ambassador at the UN. They also had the assistance of a law firm and the advice of an art expert. So they had made trips to Le Moyne, but they were not able to get any kind of conversation going. They were not even able to get a meeting because at the time there was a priest, a Jesuit priest who was president. His name was Father Berni. And Father Berni was very upset because by some quirk of fate, these paintings were listed as looted art on the Ardelia Hall list. And these were not looted paintings. They were placed in the care of the college. So as these men were trying to get the negotiations started, already there was a lot of controversy in the air about the paintings. I was fortunate that Linda Lemura came along, and when I started writing with her, she would not have a conversation with me either about these paintings. However, she did do several positive things. In my appeals to her, I stated the fact that these paintings were not well utilized. They were not getting the kind of attention that they deserved. So she invested in a totally new website which features those paintings, and I hope that the website will stay up for a long time because it gives the entire history in detail, how Stefan de Rob saved them essentially from being sold off and preserved them. By the way, that document that he wrote stated the following words: when the possibility of a gift of the collection to Le Moyne College was weighed, the commissioner, that is himself, realized that no better opportunity could be found eloquently to plead with each successive generation for the freedom of Poland. This was all the more so because the Catholic character of the institution, basically averse to the atheist penetration of communism into Poland, a nation attached uninterruptedly for 10 centuries to the Roman Church. That was probably why these paintings did not attract the attention of the Polish government when it was under communism before 1989, because of the subtext that was religious in these paintings. But anyway, moving on, I had no conversation going about the return of the paintings. All I could do was make appeals. However, as I said, Linda was quite open to various suggestions. Not only did she have that website created, she also hired a consultant who was supposed to give these paintings more exposure. Later on, she created a committee with Father Joseph Marina at its head to re-examine the whole matter. Eventually, I received a letter, and in the letter it stated that they decided that they would keep the paintings. So I was at a standstill, and I started a wide-ranging campaign of contacts, letters, telephone calls. Again, being employed by the Poles in America Foundation gave me this opportunity because this did involve an investment of time, and I was able to use my position as an employee to create whatever effect that was possible, that I was a legitimate representative of this for this particular matter. I introduced myself in each letter as amicus Polonais, because technically speaking, Mr. Miller didn't give me any kind of standing, neither did the Minister of Culture, Piotr Galiński, even though he visited in Philadelphia and I spoke with him at the time. I really had no official standing. I just kept on plugging along just to see what would happen. And then at one point, I had contacted so many different people and had so many no answers, actually, although there were a couple individuals who turned up who were sympathetic. They really couldn't do very much in this to affect the outcome of this. So I decided to take an unusual step, and I called in my friend Deborah Majka. Debbie is the assistant consul for, she's the honorary consul for Philadelphia. And she and I authored a letter to Father Marina saying that we would very much like to present the Polish case for the return of these paintings to him. And surprise, oh surprise, he actually agreed to have the meeting. So I and Debbie drove out there, and we had this meeting with Father Marina is on the far right, and in the middle, in the red sweater, is Inga Barnello, who was the current then library director, and Debbie is on the far left. So after that, I sent a long report after our meeting, which was very, very positive, and we stressed several items. One was the fact that these paintings had historical significance because each one of them showed a portion of Polish history that can be appreciated not just by Americans, although in the library they did not have very much, they didn't have very many visitors. So the one aspect was their informative value. Another aspect was the significance of the artists. This particular group of Brotherhood of Saint Luke was a major force in Polish art during the Second Polish Republic. They really contributed a lot to Polish art at the time. And the third item was that the intent of the ROP was to have these paintings eventually returned to Poland, because in the document that he had written, he stressed very much that he had avoided selling the paintings specifically for the fact that at one time they might be of value to the Polish Republic and its people. So after presenting these, and also the fact that the paintings would go to the new museum that is being currently finished in Warsaw, we left it at that. Apparently, something worked, because weeks later, Father Marina contacted me and said that he was willing to speak with the Polish government about conditions under which these paintings would be returned. Somewhat later, I visited Warsaw and I spoke with Minister Gliński, and he said that he would make the return of these paintings his personal responsibility. So last year in May, I was very happy to receive a phone call where it was announced that there would be a mission from Poland with Minister Gliński at its head, and that the papers for the return of the paintings will be signed. And that was the signing ceremony in the library. So we have the three people, that is Linda Lemura, Minister Gliński. That kind of finishes my story. I don't know exactly what the agreement contains, but I was very happy that this came to a successful conclusion and that I had a small part in it. As I was telling you the story, you see that I wasn't the only one involved. There were a lot of other people, people that I haven't mentioned, that were involved, and they were trying to push forward because of the importance of these particular items to Polish history and the Polish people. And I stole a couple of photographs here when these paintings were being returned. So can we just click through these? And here we have Minister Gliński smiling. So yeah, he was really delighted. It was a great pleasure to meet him in Syracuse when these paintings were when the papers were being signed. Can we just finish this out? And of course, the recent exhibit at the National Gallery. And this was the beautiful, beautiful exhibit. And I'm only sorry that I could not attend this, but it was done with this beautiful blue background, and the paintings were just lit up the correct way, the way that they weren't lit up in the Lemoyne Library. But so for great satisfaction for me also was that I was able to publish an article in Spotkania z Zabytkami, which outlines some of the salient facts that you heard here today from myself and from the other speakers about this item. So it was a great pleasure for me to be able to do this. And also, for those who are interested in this particular story, there is a wonderful book called The Pavilion Polski by Krystyna Nowakowska. It's both in English and Polish, so everyone should be able to read it. And our friend Tadeusz Mirecki was the man who prepared the English portion of it. So this outlines the whole history of the pavilion, which there's a lot more to be said, but I think we've said enough. Just to finish out, if you want to see the article I wrote, it's under that particular address, http://pols.org/art. That is the official site of the Poles in America Foundation. And for those who are really interested, on the bottom there, I give the YouTube address for a short film about the pavilion. It's an 8mm film made in 1939 that features some people who visited the pavilion and gives a nice view of the landscape outside of it. So I thank you. It was a great pleasure to take part in this particular talk, and also an honor to serve Poland by putting a little effort into this particular item. Again, thank you.